Hi, everybody. This is John Farian, and I'm here with Emily and Andy, and we're here today to have another professional showcase with Andy Strandquist today. So, Emily, quick shout out, say hi to everybody.
Hey, hey, we're excited to have you here. We're excited to have Andy too. It's a really amazing story. I feel like every time we're chatting, I'm learning more and more about you.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. As Emily and I have been continuing to do, we're doing our professional career showcase, leaning into our network and allowing for people in our network to be able to have some exposure here on LinkedIn. And so, with that, again, I'm John Farian. I've been corporate career with T-Mobile, Microsoft, Walmart over the years. I'm currently in a career transition, and it's a great time to have these discussions and go through all of this too. But Emily, why don't you give everybody a little bit of background on you, and then we'll maybe dive into what our mission and our vision is and go from there.
Sounds good. Yeah, same goes. I know John and I connected again. We worked at Microsoft for a period of time together, and we were just in this transition period, kind of looking at different opportunities and realizing it's a lot different than it was years ago when you are transitioning or looking for a new role, even in just the way that you're networking. So, kind of brought us together to do this. I am a mom of four, and we are a busy bunch. And I'm also a dog mom. We have a golden retriever and a German shepherd. So, it's a fun household over here.
All right, Andy. So let's dive into a little introduction for you. I know, Emily, do you have the mission and the vision in front of you there quick? Do you want to be able to
I
comment on?
don't,
Oh, that's okay. Let me
I
cover it very
don't, but I
quick
bet
here.
you do.
All right, no problem. Yep. So, the mission of the program here today is to empower and ignite professionals across the globe by sharing our journey of career navigation, fostering growth, and embracing human centered authenticity. We commit to delivering insightful content that resonates with our core values of faith, family, and community. All right, let's focus on that. And then Andy, let's go into a little deeper. I'll just tee it up that, Andy and I worked together back at T-Mobile. My memory tells me that it was for me personally about 2010 to 2012 that we worked directly together. It was an amazing experience, and we both, over the years, had experienced different layoffs and things too. And so that's how Andy and I come together. But, Andy, it was always amazing work with you. But just go a little deeper if you would and give us a little background on yourself and kind of a deeper introduction. So.
Yeah, certainly. Thanks, guys. I'm Andy Strandquist. I have a company called Strand Human Metrics, but a little personal stuff. So I have two girls. I also am a dog dad, which maybe you can hear them in the background. Someone must be walking by the front of our house. They're going nuts out there. So I apologize for the background noise there. Um, but yeah, so thinking back to kind of my first professional career, I guess was at T-Mobile. Started back in 2004, and then I was there for a number of years. And John, you and I met, worked together for a couple of years there, like you said, 2010, 2012 ish. And then from there, there was an organizational change. We had the interesting experience of getting laid off for the first time, which, when anyone that's gone through that knows that's one of the toughest
Yeah.
moments you can ever go through. And so you got to kind of pick yourself up and figure it out. And was able to take a couple of the roles at other companies. And then from there, I had another organization, make some changes. And I think with most of those, you have an opportunity to take another position potentially within the business if you decide to go that route, or you can step outside and find something else. And sitting back and thinking about it, I thought maybe it's the time to jump into something different and give it a try to go out on my own. So I guess after a couple of years in 2015-ish, after having talked to some people, I decided to go out on my own. So
That's awesome. That's awesome. And here's the thing, Andy, is like I've gone through a number of layoffs over the years too. I mean, I worked for Walmart. I went through a couple of different layoffs there, kept getting reapplied into different roles, ended up in a better role. Frankly, that's how I ended up at T-Mobile too. I went through a layoff at Walmart, had a temporary role for a little bit, and got pulled over to T-Mobile. And then I was at T-Mobile, and you and I got hit with the layoffs. I think it was the same exact time where a third party came in and took over our roles. And I keep finding myself personally in another corporate role with another. And the same thing happened again. Like I went through the T-Mobile layoffs when Sprint happened. I went now through the Activision Blizzard merger layoffs. And there's something inside of me that gives me this, and I think I'm not, I don't think this is unusual. I think, many people in their corporate career life, what you know is what you know, and it's so familiar that we're quick to jump right back into the mousetrap, I'll call it, right? Of like, if I go start another career at another corporate gig, there's a chance in the next 3 to 5 years I'm going to get laid off again. It just seems like that's the way the cycle goes. And so I've absolutely considered things like, real estate. I've considered things like financial advisor. I think, there's all these different types of jobs and careers. Like even, recently I'm reviewing an opportunity with a marketing agency where, it's a full commission job, not a traditional job with, every 2 week paycheck and benefits and all those things. And I'll be honest with you, Andy, like it scares me to death to think about the concept of not knowing exactly when the next paycheck is coming in. How is this going to work? Man, I'm completely responsible for myself now. There's no cushion. These are all the things that, and I think many of us play in our heads. And you're smiling because I know you've been through this too. We've talked a little bit about this. And I guess the key question that I'm like warming up to here is like, when is the right time, and how did you make that, was there a moment in time, was it a series of events? Just talk us through that transition of kind of enough is enough with the corporate part. And again, it's not that we're writing it off, but it's like, when are you ready to take that final leap of faith and to get into something more entrepreneurial, right? Because I'm going to be listening intently, to your response and answer, because I think it's really meaningful to me at my point in my life right now. Emily, I know you're going through, similar things too over the past, and probably in the future again, you're going to run into this as well. But would love to hear your insights, Andy, on all of that and around what made the trigger point, what was the transition, and go from there. So.
Yeah, so I was smiling because you talked about having transitions built into your corporate life, and that's change is inevitable and all those things, and there's so many cliches we can get to in there, but
Yeah,
I think that's what made me make the leap is that I'm gonna have to make a change anyway at some point. To what you said about, hey,
yeah,
it's a likelihood if I take a corporate job, there's a likelihood I may be doing the same thing in 2 years,
exactly.
and in between my experience with T-Mobile and other companies, and then having a couple transitions there and some reorgs and that sort of thing, I and a chance coincidence, I ran into a friend of mine who from the wireless world, Kyle, who was happened to be opening these businesses, and who was previously had his own business. And I was, before I was transitioning from my last corporate job to this, um, he was sharing with me, what he was doing, and we just kind of coincidentally ran into each other as he was opening these stores throughout the Twin Cities. And so that was probably in 2014 ish. And then as I was going and continuing on my corporate career, I thought about him as these other transitions came about. And so, really, to answer your question, it's about kind of your network and the folks much like
Yeah,
you and I are talking here about people that have done, the things we've done, and then who have made the decision to make a change. It's, this person or having someone to reinsure you that it's going to be okay. Or it's not going to be okay because it's really not. You choose a corporate career, you're not going to be there for, maybe you are there for 20 years, but the likelihood of you being back here in a couple of years is it's 50-50 at best probably.
yeah,
And so just embracing or understanding that no matter what you do, if you want to call it the safety net or that doesn't really exist. And it does exist in the sense that you maybe have in a corporate job, maybe you have a severance package or something else. So how do you do that in your own way for the thing you're going to do on your own? And you obviously everyone put money aside or whatever it is, or use your resources in your professional group or your personal groups to help you get through those things, and just having confidence that you can do it. If you think about the roles you've had in corporate America, a lot of times you're an individual contributor on a team. It's no different than being an entrepreneur. It's a little bit. You're an individual contributor as an entrepreneur,
yeah,
trying to make things happen in your own way.
yeah. No, that's fantastic. So, Emily, anything you want to comment or question on in regards to what he's shared so far? And then I know we're going to jump into another topic here in a second.
Yeah, no, I won't jump into it too fast, but it's interesting as you were kind of going along with a lot of the similarities that exist kind of in both spaces. I find it interesting how like no matter what we're doing, taking a plunge into something new is scary, and anytime it's different and you have to demonstrate a lot of adaptability, that is just like, it's the territory that a lot of people want to avoid because it's just can be really uncomfortable. And I think the way you embrace it, the mindset that you have, I mean, I would guess you really had to have that kind of forward thinking, let's really drive this kind of attitude.
Yeah, it's the I'm going to go figure it out attitude, which is the same attitude you have to have when you take a corporate job where you're
It's
out
true.
making stuff
Yeah.
happen for the team you're on. And so it's just
Yeah.
applying it differently. And, all of us have skills and things we learned, and we have a lot of people to thank for those things along the way that helped us develop our careers. And it's just pulling those experiences into this new venture that you're potentially getting into.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing is identifying the resources you can use from your past, your network, your professional network, your personal network. Who can help me with this roadblock, or who can help me with the situation I found myself in here. And there most likely is, and that would be the kind of the biggest thing I've learned from going from franchising into my, not Strand Human Metrics is not a franchise. That's my own little thing here. In a franchise, you've got I guess more of a familiar structure if you're coming from corporate America, because you've got some systems, if you want to call them that, depending what franchise you get into. You've got some systems that might be in place. You've got some a brand, so to speak. And so now I find myself creating those things independently and creating my own systems, my own brand. What does that look like? I'm learning that because as a franchisee in a franchise system, you get some of those things, and you have a peer group, so to speak, in that franchise system, which is helpful for folks coming from corporate systems, which is why you find a lot of people getting into franchising, frankly, because it's a familiar type of situation.
There's some
You're on your own.
infrastructure. Yeah, there's some
Yeah,
infrastructure already built into a franchise, right? So,
yeah, totally. So, um, yeah, absolutely. So then
awesome.
going from that into something totally new and different is a different type of challenge, but pulling all the experience from that and
Yeah.
from what I learned working at companies like T-Mobile and other organizations, and applying it to what I'm doing today is probably the easiest way to do it.
Yeah. And I would say the biggest fear that I have, and that I think we all have as humans, is the fear of the unknown, right? Is this like what if play? You kind of play this what if game in your head. And I think, for me, I'll give my own example. And if you guys either want to have an example you want to share too, please do. But, I think of the different layoffs I've had in my career and at the different stages of my life. And I think of the things that I've done personally for, the experiences that I had, the ability to set myself up financially, whether it be, do I have a lot of loans out, like car loans, mortgages, what other debt do I have? That played into the stress level I had at the time too. And as things have gone on, I've just learned from these experiences of how to set myself up in a way to reduce that level of stress and anxiety around, well, what if this happens tomorrow? To your point, Andy, it's like, if you are prepared for the, what could happen, you're going to come through it a lot smoother and a lot better. But, Emily, have you experienced that in your career too over the years where, transitions seem less and less scary as you go through your life a little further because you've been through them, you've experienced them? Do you have anything you want to share?
Yes. And it's funny. I think we all experience that layoff like in succession with one another
Yeah.
within the same realm too. But yeah, I actually have found that I think I embrace it more. It's become comfortable to be
Yeah.
uncomfortable
There you
because
go.
there's so much changing. And I would say COVID probably helped that too. But you once it's almost like you're developing this new skill set and you got more tools in your tool belt, and it really sets you up to want to embrace it versus, okay, it's the fear of the unknown, I'm going to embrace that piece of it right away, but like let's go forward. It's not perfect every time, but I would say that it's allowed me to be a little more adaptable.
Awesome. Andy, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I just think, leaping into a new organization too is scary. It's like, what's my team going to look like? What are the dynamics of
Yeah.
the team? Who am I working for? Are we going to get along? Are they
Yeah.
going to understand me and how I work? And so I think, looking back,
I love
they're
that
both
point. Yeah. I,
they're
I
both
love that
scary
point.
in their
Yeah.
own way.
Yeah. They're so similar but different, and I think just getting that mindset, that definitely the way you talk through it, Andy, definitely helps me kind of think through that a little bit. Emily, I know you were going to dig a little deeper into another topic here around support systems. Do you want to dive into that?
Yeah, I'm just curious. So I know when we all got together and had a little chat, you had mentioned that the support system that you had around you is so important. And I would be curious if you could maybe just tell people a little bit about what that looks like from a professional standpoint, what that looks like kind of in your personal life, and why is that so important, especially when you're venturing into something completely new, and when you're really kind of taking that leap.
Yeah, so I think John touched on it briefly with being financially ready to do it, knowing that the unknown is real and it exists in the corporate world and exists in entrepreneurship or being an independent business owner, whatever you want to call it. You have to be prepared, in some cases, you're prepared to get laid off. In some cases, you're prepared to not be successful and not make any money or have any customers or clients or whatever it might be. And so, being ready in that regard. So that's maybe the first step is just preparing, like John mentioned, being prepared financially to have, whether it's loans or debt or whatever it might be, getting those things kind of in the best possible position to take the brunt of that if something bad happens. Um, and then, just I think one of the things I didn't identify right away is the transit, being on your own. There's people that maybe you don't work with today that you can align yourself with or can help you in your process. And I being in business networking groups, for example, is helpful. So you find some peers that are maybe in the similar industries that have gone through similar things or are going through similar things. So there's a lot of business networking groups out there. There's a lot of chambers, obviously. I don't know if I would consider that the same. But small business networking groups where you have business owners, decision makers in these groups that are going through what you're going through. Um, you know, uh, Thinking about your past teams and peer groups that you're a part of and who you can speak with when you're having challenges. Not just in being an entrepreneur or being self-employed, but in your next role at the next company you choose to go to, right? Is who can I reach out to that can help me go through this? I've probably been through something similar. I'm probably not thinking about it the same way as I was because it's maybe the view is different or something. But it might have, if I explain it to somebody, maybe they'll say, "Hey, you did that before at organization X, Y, Z. This seems similar. Why don't you apply these tools or experiences to that and see if it shakes out for you?" So yeah, I think it's creating new business relationships with small business owners or entrepreneurs, if you want to call them that, whatever the affinity groups might be. Using your existing network, that people that you trust, people that trust you, that know how you do things to help you. Obviously, family is huge, so I'm thankful to have a family that was supportive of me making the transition. Without that, there's no way I could have done that. Certainly, um,
That's
and
that's
so
a big one, and I think people underestimate that too. Where I think so many people think of their career versus their personal life, right? And they don't necessarily always cross them because to some degree you kind of just focus on that, and then you focus over here. But in the world of entrepreneurship, it's a different game because your personal life now is drug right into your professional life at the same time, and having a support system, especially a spouse, a family who's understanding of the time or the financial stress that's going to come with all of this. Um, is so critical. And so thanks for sharing that, Andy. I think it's super insightful and just want to highlight that too. But Emily, any final questions or thoughts for Andy before we start to wind things up here?
Yeah, I mean, I'll speak from experience as well. When my husband had started his
Yeah,
first business, it is like if you don't have that support system, it is really difficult to get things moving. And
yeah,
and part of it too, you think emotionally and psychologically for the person that's really going into this venture, you're putting all your eggs in one basket and you're really you're hoping and you're praying it's gonna work out really well. But when you know that it's not just you, but it's your family.
yeah,
It can be, we can kind of hit each other
yeah,
right on the head. And so I just think the more connected your resources around you. So you talked about kind of that, like that network that you've had for a long time, which I love because, man, John, you and I have spoken about this a lot. We've tapped shoulders and it's like, What would you do if you burned that bridge? Probably wouldn't be too good.
Yep. Yep.
um, and then the piece with your family and doing it together. And I can only assume that's kind of what it's been like for you, and just more of a joint venture versus I'm going off and I'm going to go, have a new business, but that you're all kind of doing it together.
Definitely.
Cool. So, Andy, and I know we didn't necessarily have this as a key talking point, but as we think through this, to me, there's this kind of like unshared moment here yet that I think we can talk about is, what has been, in your opinion, the most fulfilling part of becoming independent entrepreneur, right? I think, we've talked about all these concerns that we've had so far and what were the stresses of it, what was the big leap of faith. But in hindsight now, like, tell me about the rewards of doing this now as far as, and I don't necessarily mean just financially. I mean, maybe you've had financial rewards. That's amazing. But in my mind, I'm thinking of like, just like this satisfaction that you have of knowing that it's something you're creating on your own, right? I'd love to hear kind of from your perspective on, kind of the satisfaction you've gotten out of this entrepreneurship.
I think I froze there for a second.
You're back. I can hear you now.
Thank you. Just understanding you can do it. When I thinking back to 2015-ish, when I was considering making the leap, and frankly, in my head, I'm like, there's no way I'm doing this. I'm not gonna. I mean, I was talking to a friend of mine who had his own business, who was doing this new thing with some franchises, and I thought it sounded fun and intriguing. And leaving the meeting, I was, if I recall correctly, I'm probably like, that's not going to happen. I'm not going to have my own stores or
It's
something.
amazing how we talk ourselves out of things, isn't it?
And seriously, that is it. That's it. And so at the time, I didn't have the finances to make it work independently, and I met a business partner several months later after having that meeting with him, and it just kind of fell into place. Let's do this thing, let's go. And then probably about a year later, we had our first store open,
Awesome.
for a CPR, self-owned repair. And then, so yeah, just the fact that you can do it is probably really satisfying. Not probably, it is really satisfying. And then knowing you can kind of repeat it, all right, so, along the way through my CPR journey, I was helping some other franchisees with their building their teams and staffing and that sort of thing. And back in 2022, how I got to Strand Human Metrics, basically I had helped 4 franchisees hire and build their teams, and I got a tap on the shoulder, so to speak, from somebody who said, "Hey, I met this person. They said you helped them hire some people for their business. Will you help me out?" And I'm kind of like, sure, let's figure it out.
New
And so I
opportunity.
started a separate business, Strand
Yeah.
Human Metrics, to do that. And it didn't really have many expectations for where that might go. But as we were kind of 90 days into that, I started thinking about it, and I set a goal to get another client in 2023, which I did. So I met my expectation, which is again pretty low bar. I wasn't doing any sort of marketing or networking around the business at
Yeah.
all. I didn't, and so kind of accidentally hit my goal in a sense. I set a goal, which is the first step, and
Yep.
I did make a few phone calls, but I didn't sort of branch out to my network and say, hey, I'm doing this. Who needs help? Kind of thing with staffing or hiring or team
Yeah.
building, whatever it might be. And so kind of I guess proving again that you can do it if you put some weight or some objectives behind it. So I guess I did that last
Intention.
year.
Yeah. And I think of like, I keep thinking about like this idea of like intention, right, of what you're doing too. And I was meeting with another past coworker yesterday. We actually were at the T-Mobile office here, the headquarters, and they had like a happy hour moment. And I met somebody, and one of the things that she told me she had done, which was an amazing idea, is she had actually typed up an email and kind of was like, "Hey, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm looking for." Like when she's looking for a new job or a new career too. And what you just said kind of brought that memory back to me of like, you know, somehow, some way, we in our own heads are afraid to reach out to people because we feel like we're going to be a burden or we worry about what they may think of us. And it's, I hate to say it, and I'm going to say it boldly. It's like, it's all crap. Like, let's just be honest. It's
100%.
crap, right? And it's crap that we put in our own heads. And I'm just, Andy, I can honestly say I've known you for years at this point, and I'm extremely proud of what you've accomplished in your career. I'm envious of it, and so congratulations on everything you've been able to accomplish. So
Thanks, John. Appreciate that very much. Means a
yeah,
lot.
no worries. Yeah.
I don't
Any
know if I answered
final?
your
Yeah, and
question.
I told you, I said my husband was at one of your locations and it was a great experience.
There you
Saw
go.
over your
Awesome.
face. You were like,
Good.
okay, it was good, right? Like we,
Yeah,
because you have pride and you care about what you're doing, which is incredible.
yeah, yeah. I think you answered the
Awesome.
question about like what was the most gratifying part, and I think to me that made sense. The fact that you kind of, the fact that you kind of just proved to yourself that you could do it. I think, and that's kind of what I was looking for and what I thought you might say. So, any
Awesome.
final thank yous, shout outs you want to give everybody before we wrap anything up, Andy? I bet you got some people in your life you'd like to give shout outs to or thank yous. So,
Oh yeah, certainly. Obviously, my family, my wife and kids, Jill, Maddie, Zoe, and that sort of thing. Of course, extended family. But the teams I was able to work with, kind of early in my career at T-Mobile, huge inspiration for me. And thanks for taking a shot on me, I guess. So
perfect,
other
perfect,
folks in leadership groups I've worked for.
awesome. Emily, any final comments?
No, just thank you so much for joining. I know I have learned a lot from you, and maybe I'll just be a little bit better at taking some more plunges, and have the attitude of Andy along the way. But no, thank you so much. I think that this has been wonderful, and a lot of people are going to gain a lot of just introspect and knowledge from what you walked through. So thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Andy, Emily, you guys hang tight as I wrap this up, and I'll see you on the outside of the movie here or the show. But thank you everybody for watching. Appreciate you coming in here. Feel free to repost this. Share the content out. I think it's valuable content for the sake of like. There's a lot of people who I've had private conversations with that this topic, this content, along with the other shows we've done, are all really helpful. And so the way we're going to continue to get the message out about what's going on in these amazing careers is by everybody reposting it and sharing it out. So thank you guys. Drop some comments if you have any questions for any of us. So have a great day. Thanks, everybody.